Good morning, everyone. Texas Homer, joined by Ian Boyd. It's the Wednesday show where we go a little deeper into the schematics. Ian, guess where they should go? Sign up. Inside Texas, 50% off the Ultimate Fan Bundle on 3 rivals all together. We would love to see you over there. We're going to talk the run game at first, the pieces of that, and then how that's going to affect future defenses with the addition of Cam Coleman. All right, brother. How you feeling, man? Are you excited about these latest grabs just in general?
Let's go.
Yeah. Ready to rock? Okay. So this is Sark's part 2. If you watched, I don't know, it was last week or 2 weeks ago, we talked about the initial run game, but now it's becoming more clear as we added portal running backs. We know what Sark is looking for. What are your thoughts immediately when you see the play styles of Smothers and Rayleigh Brown?
It's just speed everywhere. So it's like greatest show on turf, kind of. That's probably too old a reference for you and some people.
Yeah.
That was like when I was first getting into football, that was the big thing. The greatest show on turf. The St. Louis Rams, for all you youngsters out there. Speed everywhere. Like Rayleigh Brown is a every down back, but his big dominant attribute, speed, right?
Yep.
Dalen Smothers, Hollywood, I'd say the same thing. Like you can say he's an every down back. He can carry the rock at volume, but what makes him great, what makes him different? Speed. Yeah. And then they just added deep threat outside in Cam Coleman. And they still have Wingo. So it's just like whoever touches the ball next year between the major skill positions is going to be their primary attribute, you could say, is speed.
Yeah.
Maybe actually, I know you'll push back on this. Maybe more, you'll agree with this. Maybe more at running back even than the other positions.
Yeah.
Like Wingo speed for sure. Coleman is fast, but probably his dominant trait is like hands, right?
Yeah, dominant trait is like in-air ball tracking, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Mosley, more of a technician.
Mosley's like a slower Cam Coleman.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would agree at running back. Before we get into the other parts of the run blocking game, people are going to ask about O-line. Do you think Texas will look into hiring an assistant O-line coach or analyst for offensive line this offseason?
That makes sense, right? Like when they brought Tim Drevno in quietly early in the season, it would make sense if Sark lined up another old head offensive line coach to come and be in the building as like a contingency if it's like not going well, or maybe to be like a second set of eyeballs. I'm sold. I think they should do it. I don't know if they will or not.
I don't even know what level of true effect it has, but sure, there's nothing wrong with a second set of eyes. Utah Horn asks, so are we going to have an O-line this year and next?
Yeah. They brought back the most important bones of last year's line. They brought back both starting tackles and the center. And they brought back the center who helped stabilize the line. And I mean, Robertson's not going to be confused with an all-SEC first-team player anytime soon, but he's stable. The tackles should be downright good this year, right? That's what we would expect. Like, they were pretty good last year, and that'd be a year better. I think they both care. So then you're just like, you just got to find a couple of experienced. If you just plug in 2 average guards, you're better than last year.
Yeah. We were so bad that if you get to average, like Paul says, you're going to see significant improvement. And the thing, too, is people are worried is like, the portal entrance window is closing Friday, and then they have 48 hours to officially be in after. But that's what people are most keyed in on is like, look, we got Cam, we got these backs, but where are the game-changing offensive linemen? Of course, you have Seaton from Colorado, but he's a tackle. People are still like, okay, but we want guards. So that's going to be the big thing. But the big important factor is that if the window closes without some big name guard or something like that, there's still probably thousands of overall people left in the portal, hundreds of potential guards. And at that point, they just have to make an evaluation. They can still pick them up before spring, before classes close on like the 28th, I think. Or you can even still technically go through all of spring and pick them up in summer because a lot of guys are going to get stuck in the portal. So if they don't get the big name guard there, it doesn't mean that there's no option to get a guard after that.
Guard in general is just people I think are thinking about that position wrong. Tackle is a talent position. Guard is like a culture infrastructure position. Your guards are developed and they reflect the strategy and the nature of the program. Texas has done a very bad job of developing guards, which is not a good indicator about the evaluation and development skills on campus of the staff. But you can always just import guys that have been developed by someone else.
I was going to say, you can circumvent that weakness by just bringing in someone who's already been developed.
And this staff, I think, is definitely good at deploying talent. Developing it, I think, is iffy depending on the position, but deploying it, that's when you see like the NFL skill sets of like, I guess, Flood, for sure, Sark, Jackson. You see that when they have developed guys. Chris Jackson, if I didn't say that, at receivers for sure. So, yeah, everybody needs to just calm down on the O-line thing. The O-line has never been a big, scary thing for next year. It was always an easy fix once Trevor Gooseby decided to come back. Now they're aiming a little high with the Jordan Seaton deal. They're bringing in a tackle when they don't even need a tackle.
I'm still like, I'm like, cool, awesome if you get him, but I'm still a little confused by that move. Maybe something else will play out and make it more clear.
When Nick Brooks left in the portal, I was like, I don't love that because who's the third tackle? Right. And then my buddy Shane was like, so if they get Seaton, Baker's the third tackle, right? And I was like, oh yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Or the potential he moves to guard, right? And so
he's going to move to guard, but he would just bump him back out.
Yeah. And so then at that point, you just need more guard to source. So I can see that plan. But yeah, the Seaton thing is just like, well, that's awesome. I'm just trying to figure out exactly the mechanics of that decision. So, but I wanted to talk about this before we go into it because otherwise they'll be like, I don't care about Cam Coleman. I need the offensive line first. So
you brought it up. It's your fault. Hey, the Dustin Summy says Kyle Flood's pink slip in intra-office mail limbo. I think that one got sent to Pepe Sylvia, so we may not see it for a while.
Yeah, it doesn't look to be the case. Okay, so now we know offensive line. Figure it out either through a combination, getting the portal before the window closes, or finding someone later. You might only need one starter, and of course, I think you need to add depth because we have no functional depth anymore after the portal. But now we can talk about all the other pieces, so we're not just getting stalemated with I don't care offensive line. Okay, so tight ends are going to be a big factor. You add Masunis first for 12 personnel, but what is this going to do? What does this allow style-wise for Sark to play?
The Coleman one is the big one. Coleman is the most important piece because now you have the receiver that can command safety attention down the field. So you get that, and now it's just really easy to create gaps and create advantages in the box to run the ball. So the most important piece, I'm going to say this until I'm going to be like saying this on my dying bed, probably. The most important piece in offensive football is the deep threat receiver, because then you pull people away from the trenches, and that's how you get your advantage in the trenches. Everybody always talks like the way to win in the trenches is you just slam into each other and you have like the slightly bigger sledgehammer so that you can gradually pound the other one down. It's like, it drives me nuts. It's like, you guys, it's y'all, World War I is y'all's fault. That's not the way to do it. The way to do it is that you infiltrate with the deep threat receiver You force them to pull people out, and then you can take ground in the trenches. They have Coleman, so they have that now. They also have Wingo, who can pull guys to the sideline at least. Hopefully he can develop more down the field as well.
Yeah.
But last year he was like clearly a proven weapon, pulling guys out of the box with lateral stress. Mosley, Lockett, McCutcheon, whoever else, these guys are all good. I don't think they're going to command safety attention. But if the defense is worried about everything else, then any one of them could potentially be a real killer working at that advantage. And your run game is now working at a huge advantage. The 12 personnel aspect makes that actually a little more pronounced. And this is the more complicated football theory that we'll get into today that may take up a larger amount of time. I think Masunis is a good place to start. Do you agree?
Yeah.
When you have your 5 offensive linemen, go ahead and scroll down to the diagram. You have your 5 offensive linemen, the square and the 4 circles. Then you have Masunis as the Y, as an inline tight end, and he's basically like almost like a 6th offensive lineman. So now you're creating 7 gaps, and you have 6 blockers. Then you add the H, and let's say it should almost just be an F for fullback. And let's say that's Nick Townsend. And he's off the ball, so he doesn't have to stay where he is. He can move around before or after the snap and insert himself as a blocker at different points along the line. Now you have 7 blockers for 7 defenders, and you can create 8 gaps. If the defense wants to either have a free guy who's not blocked, or if they want to have a primary defender for every single gap that you can create in the box, they need 8 defenders. If they use 8 defenders for that, Connor, how many defenders do they have left to defend the 2 wide receivers?
3.
3. And now if they have to use one of those defenders to help on Coleman, then the other receiver is in a one-on-one, or they have to pull numbers away from the box.
You force them to a decision, Ian.
Force them to a decision. There's other layers to this too. If you want to fit those 8 gaps and take on those 7 big blockers effectively, you probably can't do it in nickel personnel. You probably need to play with like a 3rd linebacker or an extra defensive tackle with an outside linebacker, something like this. You probably need 7 guys in the box who are big physical dudes. Now that you've done that, and you're back to playing with 4 traditional defensive backs, and maybe one of them is even more of like a box safety type, you have way less flexibility with how you're going to play coverage. So not only is it like, okay, well, we've got 4 defensive backs now. One of them needs to help in the box. So we've really only got 3 back-end defenders, and one of them has to help on Cam Coleman. So now the offense knows what you're doing every single play, because you have reduced all of your options by personnel to like 1 or 2. And so every snap, Sark is play calling, knowing almost exactly what you're doing and exactly where the stress points are. And you're in a world.
I'm saying that's why he loves 12.
That's why he loves 12. And modern defenses are being built to be primarily in nickel personnel. Mm-hmm. And like even more cutting edge guys like Kevin Minter or other defensive coaches in the NFL, they want to defend everything from nickel personnel. Because once they're out of nickel, if you have 5 defensive backs on the field, you can bring help to the box from a lot of different angles, and you can send help to cover receivers from different angles, and you have multiplicity all over the field to keep the offense guessing.
Yep.
Or to reflect different personnel advantages and disadvantages you're going to have that week. If you've only got 4 defensive backs, your options go down way low. the more guys you put on the field who can't credibly move around and drop into the deep field out of the box, the more in a box you're playing conceptually and not just literally. And so you're like, by playing with this style, Sark is forcing teams to pages of the playbook that are like haven't been touched in 10 years, yeah. and have not been repped and practiced and explained like the new stuff.
So that's a traditional solve or a defensive solve here. What do you do? And I think Nick Davis talks about, but if they can play a light box because you can't run, what do you do with teams that do two gap and know that this is your whole point, that you're trying to do this and find other ways to not allow you to dictate their terms?
That is the perfect transition. Sark's answer for that this year is if you play with a light box, then I have 2 speed backs now. And I run a whole lot of different schemes. And I'm going to hit you at different angles and in different gaps. And if you mess up just a couple times, we're really going to make you pay because our running back is going to explode into space and we're going to score on that possession. That's Sark's answer. You were pitching this. I was resisting it. And I'm starting, I don't know if I'm convinced, but I am seeing the logic, at least I can say.
Thank you.
Or it's like,
that's as much as I'll get from Ian. I can at least see what you were thinking.
The logic is sound. I don't know if that's the way I would want to do it, but the logic, like this is not how Indiana does it, for instance. I like how Indiana does it.
It's not what I want. It's what I think works within Sark world.
It definitely makes sense within Sark world, and I definitely think it can work.
So what does that mean? What's that argument with explosive backs? The simplest way to explain it to fans is, even if you watch through all of our film studies, it didn't matter, 4 or 5 times a game, Sark would scheme a hole open. And if you had a back, it was wide open, blinking red sign. Here you go. We've been working on setting this up for the quarter. And it's
I don't know if he even deserves that much credit, but it would just happen naturally. It would happen naturally because you're running so many different schemes. Eventually, the defense makes a mistake, and there's a
I think you're right, but the multiplicity helps that, right? So there would be the blinking red light of here's a touchdown, and we would constantly on the film study be like, it's there, but Baxter and Wisner didn't have that second gear. They could get through the gap, but they couldn't finish. The safety would catch them or slap their leg out from under them or something like that. These guys can take advantage of it. And they have stronger vision, not stronger than Wisner. I think Wisner actually had good vision. I think he was physically limited. But these guys are not just pure panic speed runners where they're just going off of instinct when they get the ball. Like Smothers has good vision between tackles and stuff like that. So I think they're able to hit it or cut back or something like that. But these plays have been here, even with how bad the offensive line was this year. You get those opportunities just by the nature of Sark's design. And if you can turn that, what we would have as an 8-yard gain into a 40-yard gain, it changes the effectiveness of the run game, the feel of the run game, how a defensive coordinator is going to perceive the run game, all of that.
I'll make a further concession. I think the way Sark schemes the run game, the heavy plotter who's like 3 to 5 yards at a time, does not work in Sark's scheme because Texas runs so many different run plays that they don't run any of them like consistently well. So you're always going to get a couple negative plays or run stuffs mixed in because your execution is not precise enough.
Yeah.
And so with imprecise execution in your run game, you need to make it really count when you hit those explosive plays.
Right. Yeah, it's very high variance because you're going to get TFL, 40 yards.
Well, maybe not in that order. That doesn't really make sense, but
not on that drive, but you get what I'm saying. So it's like it is very polar on what ends up happening with the Sark run game, and so And it's fine if you have the guy that can give you the upside whenever it does look good. The problem is we didn't have the upside. We were just getting most of the downside of that style of running.
Ryan Nelson at Ian, the IU backs, Indiana, aren't the most explosive guys. They are physical guys. Roman Himby has added a little more of an extra gear, but nothing special.
Well, that's because they execute.
That's exactly that. The Indiana's, in my opinion, their offense is very similar to Tom Herman's. In particular, when I'm watching them, I get reminded of like 2018 Texas all the time, where it's like, we're going to throw up 50-50 balls to Colin Johnson, and what are you going to do about it? He's 6'6". We're going to scheme little Jordan Humphrey open in the slot, and we're going to run inside zone for 4 yards at a time, like 25 or 30 times,
Yeah.
We have a physical fullback, Andrew Beck. For Indiana, it's Riley Nowakowski. We're going to call them a tight end for reasons. Very, very similar. And that I kind of prefer that college style better.
So do I.
Than Sark's. But Sark's has the title, so it's not like it's wrong.
Yeah, I've had to acquiesce. What I would like is we get 5 yards every time we line up and want to run the ball. That's awesome because that's predictable and that's consistent, and you generally can go deeper in playoffs with it. So because Indiana can execute and you're going to get XYZ yards because everyone's going to block well and they're going to get a push off the ball, then you can take a more consistent back that's bigger that can get those 5. But we have a high variance run game, meaning that it's going to be not great or great. And we're not hanging out in the middle. Indiana hangs out in the middle, and that's why they're consistent. We're not consistent. So we just have to be able to maximize our upside with explosivity when it's there. Not saying it's my favorite style. It's just kind of what we've seen Sark had success with.
Nelson added again. He said, you can tell in Ian's voice he believes Sark overcomplicates things and sees Indiana just focused on fundamentals and skull dragging opponents' weaknesses. Yeah, I think Indiana is doing basically everything I've ever said you should do in college football to win. The only thing, no, they're doing everything I've ever argued, like the emphasis on receivers, the emphasis on simplicity of execution, the always bringing in a veteran transfer quarterback, ideally one that can add a little bit with his legs. They have it down to a science. I also prefer that simpler execution-based spread deal at Texas.
Yeah.
And if I were a head coach at Texas, I would like barely recruit quarterbacks out of high school, see which outgoing 3-star Texas kids hit somewhere else, and then portal them back in to come back as from the proconsulate, sit on the throne. But all that said, I think Sark's knows what he's doing, and his method could absolutely bring a championship. So
why are we doubling down on guaranteeing ourselves unforced errors? To me, man, it's like I said, this is not my perfect system. Like, I like Indiana too, but this is year 6. I've just seen what works with Sark, his tendencies. I'm trying to maximize what Sark wants to do. And I think that's this strategy. But it's like we've always been pretty bad in success rate, meaning we're not a consistent offense. We're more of an explosive, get it in chunks offense. We've had penalty issues. We're constantly in 3rd and longs. It just is what it is. And so it's like hopefully he has a come to Jesus and fixes all of his inconsistencies that he's had for the 6 years here, but I just don't think that's likely. So it's, to me, I've totally switched from what I like and want to see versus what I think Sark can maximize for what he's shown me, in my opinion.
I don't think we're doubling down on guaranteeing ourselves unforced errors. I think that's the nature of how the run game tends to work out, but it's not how the passing game was designed. All of it is designed to out-execute you. I think that the multiplicity tends to create explosive plays where something slips on defense in the run game. In the passing game, they're designed to just be able to go beat people, and they have for most of the year Sark's been here. So I don't think that's like I don't think that's a fair characterization of the offense in general.
I think it's a high variance offense. I think it's low success and high explosivity. Even in the past game, those are the numbers. We were like, I don't know, number 12 in the country in passing explosive. We were number like 80 something in passing success rate. So
yeah,
it it could be a philosophy, right? Like Sark is taking some change here early so he can get to that look that he's desperately searching for and trying to build. But it's just, you're not going to get, with the style that's played, you just don't get a ton of drive up and down the field stuff. And I mean, you even saw it in like the traditional, like once we get to the third quarter, we stall, right? We've seen that for years type of thing. So it's a high variance offense. It just is what it is. There's, in poker players, there's like stable players that don't make crazy plays. They make their money, a pot at a time. And then you have the player that's hangs out and waits till it's all in. He's a high variance player. Both styles win. There's risks and advantages to both. Like say there's Indiana, and it's not a great example because he's a good coach, but say it's a consistent team, but they do finally meet that team that can match them 1-for-1. Well, now they don't have any explosivity upside and they're stuck. Now, if you place a explosive offense that has been able to take advantage of athlete matchups, and then they meet that secondary that doesn't give you that explosive by design or by athlete, then they're stuck. So both sides have a way to beat them, even though I like the more traditional, consistent side, just because it's easier to project, man, week to week. Whenever I'm evaluating Texas, I would like to know what I'm getting more.
I think that if the line gets better at just not letting guys run through, then you'll see the variance change to where it's a little more semi-successful versus very successful instead of disaster or successful.
Yeah, we'll see, man. That's going to be a big factor. Before we keep going, though, guys, let's hear a very, very quick word from our friends, Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Fast one.
Same-day delivery powered by DoorDash.
See, I told you I wasn't lying. All right, any more about, we got into the philosophy of Sark. Is it not easier to build explosion onto consistency rather than the other way around? Is consistency a better base?
I don't know that Texas is, I don't think inconsistent is really fair to describe Texas.
I do. I 100% think it's fair.
I mean,
if you're in constant third and longs and you're in bad success rate for years, I mean, definitionally you are inconsistent as far as moving the ball forward.
But that's relative to other teams. It's not relative.
Everything's relative to other teams. It's all everything is relative.
I know, but conceptually, he's not talking about compared to other teams. He's talking about compared to the results of your play calls.
I think a consistent team is generally like more traditionally well coached.
That's
not
what I'm talking about, though. I'm talking about like, if you take like Texas's 60 play calls in a game and you treat them as dice rolls or something like that, or like shots at the basket in basketball, you wouldn't describe Texas necessarily as being inconsistent. You only describe them as being inconsistent when you say the number of times they miss the hoop or throw air balls is not good in comparison to what other teams do this. But within that set of 60 shots, you would say you understand what I'm saying?
You're saying if we took all the shots blind and looked at them, you would say Texas in this offense scored the same amount of points.
No,
the consistent offense just did it in 0.25 increments, and Texas had 0.001 point versus 0.25, 0.25, 0.25, 0.25. It's the same overall effect if you look at it at the end. Is that what you're trying to say?
No. I'm saying that. Oh man. I'm saying that they tend to make their shots. It's not like they have like disasters all the time. maybe last year. But
Yeah.
I don't think like the rate of disasters was all that high. So to say that this is like an inconsistent offense.
Do you account like stalling a drive not as a disaster, but it doesn't have to be some like havoc play. I'm just talking about literal not moving the ball forward and being in 3rd and 7 all the time. It's not a disaster, but it's not good. You're constantly behind the sticks. You're constantly on the back foot with this offense. And Sark can design individual plays so well that he can get you out of a lot of those 3rd downs. Thank God he has that ability. But also, you wouldn't need that ability as much if you weren't always in 3rd and 7 having to scheme that.
Yeah, some of that also is that he takes shots. So like to further mangle my basketball analogy, he's not just it's like you have 60 shots at the hoop, and then one guy goes and he stands next to the basket and he shoots banks. And another guy goes to the free throw line where it only counts for 1, and he's just shooting free throws. Sark is like, takes a 3, goes in, great, just takes another one, misses, okay, goes in for the free throw, make sure I hit this one so I get, you know what I mean?
So are you saying like the modern NBA approach whenever everyone started shooting threes, meaning that you're gonna hit less shots, but still the points even out? It's still a more valuable to hit a 3 than a 2, even though technically you'll miss the 3 more overall.
Yeah, he's chasing explosives because those lead to points. But he also does a lot of things where he'll be like, it's like 3rd and 7, and he's at midfield, and it's like a run almost every time, right?
Yeah.
And so, and then that's going to score bad on a success rate. But he's not really playing for success rate. He's I don't know if this is totally fair. Sark's goal is scoring points and trying to control games. I think Sark's philosophy mathematically is very, very sound. It's like if I can score early, or I can score on big plays, then I can control a game and control a clock and force the other team to play a certain way.
Yeah, I agree. It's a style of play. Like I don't have, and there's weaknesses to it. And there's, like I said, there's weaknesses to teams that are very consistent service academy, but can't go over the top because they do line up against a bigger team or a team that's just scrappier. Then they don't have an option. So you can get. I just wish it blended more. You know, like I wish Sark was more efficiency based on early, mixed in efficiency based approaches more often on early downs. And then the flip side, you can say, well, Connor, the best time to hit an explosive is early downs because that's where you have the options. And so, but it's like, I'm not asking you to go one or the other or extreme here. I guess the feel was better on when to try to go for efficiency and when to try to go for the knockout at times. I guess that's just kind of my overall feel, but I understand it. That's his style. He wants to jack up the 3. You'll miss more, but ultimately your points will even out with the 2-point shooter.
You seem like the kind of guy that wouldn't bluff at a poker table very often.
I generally don't.
Yeah.
Like it's I generally don't. Or I'll put on an early bluff pretty early into the game, and then I'll make sure I have it generally. But you do it to set up that thing that it's like, well, he doesn't have 3 hands in a row. I like to introduce that doubt, but I wouldn't bluff just crazy throughout the game. I'm definitely a more conservative style, not a nit, but I am more conservative. On
The best times to throw it deep in order are 4th and short is the best time to throw it deep.
Drives fans nuts, but it is, yeah.
In terms of getting a defensive look where you have the best chance to hit an explosive play within that perimeter, the best times to take a deep shot are 4th and short, 3rd and short, and then like 1st and 10.
Yeah.
You're arguing for like 2nd and 1, throw it deep.
No, well, yeah, I mean, sure, yeah. If you gave it to me on paper, I would like mathematically sure like that. But the problem is 2nd and 1 has become such a common. He's going to throw it deep there that I think it's defeated the purpose of the surprise of it. I think 1st and 10 is actually I love 1st and 10 to throw it deep, but in mix, right? Because by definition, the further the ball goes down the field, the less likely you are to complete it. So that's just the nature of going deep. So sometimes you do that, but also you need to be efficient because you know you're going to miss somewhere upwards of like 60% of the time. Well, you know now you're in 2nd and 10, and what is Sark going to do on 2nd and 10? He's going to run it for 0 yards, and then now we're in 3rd and 10. Something in the sequence chain needs to be less predictable. And I think introducing efficiency early, blended with some shots early, will help Sark. It's not as Sark's play design that bothers me. There's something about the sequencing, and I think about it a lot, and I can't like put exactly my finger on it. But if you're in 3rd and forever all the time, there's something wrong in this 1st down to 2nd down connection and how they're being placed, what you're going for. That. And of course, all percentages. Sark's not throwing deep on 100% of 1st and 10, but there's something broken in this chain.
Just win, baby.
Just win. But the problem is we're not just winning.
I'll just say that I don't think you're wrong, but I think scoring does more to control a game than 1st down success rate. Nothing controls a game like scoring points.
Yeah, the point is to score. But it's kind of a proxy argument because if you're good at success rate, those teams are generally good in the red zone. So they generally can score. And so the success rate teams are generally pretty good scorers. And over a game, they might need more drives to do it because Sark will score on less drives because of the explosive nature. But they both get to points. It's not like the success rate team is known for just stalling out at the 1, because the whole point is they're good executors, and good executors score in the red zone, whether it's through creating with scheme or just running it at you.
That's easier to do if, say, your team is mostly 22 to 23-year-olds, and your receivers are big flypaper hand guys, and you don't have a lot of 4- and 5-star speed demon divas who want the ball and want to go deep and stuff.
Yeah.
This is there's a little bit of this is an advantage that Indiana is leaning into that smaller schools can't normally lean into, and a disadvantage for a school like Texas that you do see come up fairly often.
All right. And Drew said earlier, the psychological pressure of scoring early, the psychological pressure of I was rewatching Cam Coleman versus was it Cortland Guillory at OU? He kept cooking him. He was just scared of Cam Coleman, so he kept holding. So there is a psychological pressure to these downfield weapons. But whenever I played football, like at tackle, the speed guy didn't freak me out as much. There was one guy at Wichita Falls, Ryder. He had no speed. He went through my chest every time, and I would anchor and I would set, and he was just so much stronger than me and slide me. That's psychological pressure too, of just being ground down. Like this team is getting 3 and 4 on me. It takes longer to enact the stress of that. But man, in the 4th quarter with a guy that's just keeps beating you and with nothing fancy also has a real effect. Trust me, I still remember that one player from when I was playing tackle versus a speed guy where it's high variance. Either I stop him or I don't. But it is ultimately styles. I just want
Texas. There's not been very many Texas teams that could master that. And this particular Texas program is not at all aiming for that.
And why do you think that you think that's a mix of the talent you bring in through the state of Texas on top of Sark's scheme? Because I think it's an interesting point how you said Texas historically hasn't done that. And also Texas has to deal with 4 and 5 stars who are trying to 3 and out. And they already have gotten enough praise to where they expect their role to be heightened regardless. Why does this style tend to follow Texas around in general?
Oh, man. I think it theoretically could. But I think a lot of Texas high schools, Texas has always had like a little more of a run and gun kind of philosophy, dating back to the Ranger Wars with the Comanche in the 1800s. You still see that like in the high school offenses. It's like still like downstream of that kind of style. So like some of the best players in Texas and the advantage that you get from recruiting top Texas players is more like run and gun spread kind of deal rather than beat you down and impose your will. Texas football players in the spring often do track and other sports, and the big guys often do like also track.
Shot put. Yeah.
Other regions, like say Michigan, where they did enact that style of grind you down, their big men in the offseason do wrestling. So they're learning like leverage and this is how you physically overpower another man all offseason, right? That does something psychologically. And I don't think Texas has quite as many large freak athletes as other states like Georgia in the South.
We're a quarterback and skill state, right?
We're a quarterback. We have big guys. We definitely have a lot of them. But the main thing that Texas has over other states is the quarterback and skill guys, and that's partly related to year-round development,
7-on-7 focus,
7-on-7 or flag focus. I've been learning about. I've noticed that if you want to win in competitive flag leagues, which I'm in right now, you need to get a really good athlete and train him how to play quarterback and throw on the move, because you're not allowed to block blitzers. So if your quarterback can't move around and buy time for himself, it's tough. It's really, really, really tough. So that's just developing all these kids to throw, which is something that's a factor I hadn't noticed before.
And play make throw, right? Not just from the pocket.
Play make throw. Yeah. It has to be on the move a lot of the time. And then also Texas football at the high school level is actually public school focused instead of private school focused. So the level of skill development across the state is massive. It's not like the handful of top kids that get funneled into the private schools and get developed at a higher level there. You can be in a skill-based passing offense in suburban schools up and down I-35 everywhere. And that's just totally different in terms of what guys are being. So all that feeds into Texas is not advantaged relative to some other programs with the local recruiting base in terms of trying to grind you down and impose your will next to like big kids in the deep South or hardened wrestlers from the Midwest, but it is advantaged in,
throwing that rock, dude.
And in the chambers on the Colts.
Yeah.
Shooting from a horse.
Yeah. So people will say, like, and they put it out, well, if we can't run block, what are we doing? We kind of talked about this, but what's the concept of what does an offense look like with explosive backs where you don't have to block traditionally? Meaning you don't have to push them 5 yards off the ball. Is it screening? What's your term for it? Is it more just, and I'm leading you to it, but just more, as long as you can turn the guy and be a speed bump, not in the pass game, but even in the run game, it's kind of like wide receiver blocking at that point.
Yep. Stock blocking. Yep. I have terms for offensive linemen. You have like your road graders and you have your obstacles. And you just need obstacles for this style. Offensive line, outside zone, you got to move off the ball and you can actually build some momentum to kind of push people a little bit because you're like just almost like at a running start and you keep your feet going depending on how you run the scheme. But in general, you can get like a bunch of big pass protectors that are really good at getting to a spot and then being in the way and being hard to get around and hard to push through because they're so thick. They got like some nimble feet, but they're thick. And a lot of times those dudes are like tall and wide. And they're just often not as good at driving people off the ball like you would think because they struggle to get low and they struggle to be explosive. But they can be quick enough and then they can be hard to move. And so then you just get to this spot, hold your ground between your initial movement and all of the run pass conflict we're creating with Cam Coleman and extra blockers. We're going to create a gap in the defense. And then you just make sure that the defender doesn't get there. So you don't have to push him anywhere. Just stay in his way. If you watch like when Texas moved the ball well against A&M and Oklahoma, it was a lot of that. Unless it was DJ Campbell, in which case DJ Campbell was moving people.
But yeah, just stand in the door frame. Just keep
stand in the door frame. That was great.
Yeah, just stand in the door frame. That's the big key. And most importantly, the back, that when they do stand in the door frame, can take advantage of that. Ian, Homer, you think Sark thinks his scheme was fine? It was just players? I mean,
probably.
I would say, yeah. I mean, look what happened. He went out and got players in the portal. He cut a lot of players. So, yeah, I think he's telling you that he thought he just didn't have the pieces to maximize. I mean, that could be true. I mean, everybody's scheme looks a lot better with Cam Coleman in it. Besides Auburn, God, man.
Yeah.
That was sickening.
We'll see. I think Sark is very angry in a good way and engaged. And he's also, you and I heard you and Paul talking the other day about Muschamp and how he specialized in Texas game plans and stuffing Sark's offense in the locker. I think if Muschamp tells him stuff, I don't think Sark is just going to stand pat and ignore any challenges to his approach that he hears from Muschamp. But probably not that much that needs to change with the Texas scheme. It works pretty good when the players are good.
That's a big theme with all schemes. They all look better when the players are better. But also when we say Sark's scheme, it's like so varied. It's like he's got the whole damn offense in there. I mean, he's got 12 personnel heavy stuff. He's got West Coast principles. He's got Air Coryell downfield passing. I mean, he's got a big breadth of offense. It's not like a little niche, cute offense. The argument would be that he's carrying too much, not enough.
Yeah. I don't think that's going to be Muschamp's feedback, having read his 750-page Florida defensive playbook.
Yeah. Yeah, these are two huge systems. The narrative around Texas fans and media seems to be that Ryan Wingo will take a big step in 26. We are in year 3, and most wide receivers already popped by now. Seems like wish casting.
I'm more with Nelson. I definitely think he can get better, but there's a reason we're like pounding the table to go get Cam Coleman. And if you can't get him, go get an up and comer that you think is about to become Cam Coleman.
I don't think Wingo's going to become what I would call a skilled wide receiver, a technician. I don't think that'll happen until years in the NFL, if it ever happens at all. But I think he can still maximize what he's good at and at least get better downfield. That's what I'm looking for Wingo. We know the screen game's crazy, but if we can really get it to where that post cross with Coleman and Wingo results in Wingo catching the ball more, I would like that. But I don't know. He's not going to turn into some route runner. He's never been that. He's always been a dominant athlete, even in high school. He wasn't a skilled athlete. God got him about 90% of the way there. So I don't think it's going to turn into a skilled receiver in the sense that, like, when I watch Mosley, I can understand what he's doing and how he's setting DBs up. Ryan often goes through the motion. If you watch Cam Coleman had basically 4 routes he ran, and they would stop at different depths, which is really easy for a DB because they're just counting, okay, 7 yards, 15 yards. Now it's a fade, right? They know by the depth of where he should break what it's going to be. But what Cam would do is at the right depth for what would be a comeback or a sit, he would pump his feet like he is going to sit. And he does that so much in that offense, the corner would then bite, and then he would run for the fade. So Cam knew what his other routes were and where he would break them in order to get a corner to bite. Wingo will chop his feet anywhere in the route because he knows you need to chop your feet. But Wingo didn't tie it to, I need to chop my feet at 10 because now it does look like the sit I've been running the previous game. He's not playing that game. So he would go through the motions and he would technically do the physical thing and what you need to do, but it was almost never married to making any sense. For instance, the big one was Mississippi State where he needed correct, I think it was outside leverage, and he forced inside leverage right into the guy's advantage and screwed up his own route. And it was just like, what are we doing? It's just not understanding that thing. So I don't think Wingo's going to put all that together, but I also think hopefully he doesn't get injured in spring, doesn't get injured in fall ball.
That's the thing. That's the thing. My only hesitation with everything you just said is that he missed most of the spring and most of the fall. So to say, oh, he's not going to become skilled. Well, it's hard to say that when he hasn't even had much of a chance yet.
Yeah, and also a little bit of bias to just the pure athlete. They just generally don't until later on. Until they start getting so shut down in the NFL, you have to have some skill. That's when the impetus is normally to have it. So maybe I'm just biased there with the natural God-given athletes generally don't. There's no impetus to develop that skill. While Emmett Mosley's not a burner, he has to develop skill. So maybe this is the impetus from not having a great season downfield that he needs that to do it. But just generally, I don't think he's going to turn into some technician. But I do think he can get better down the field. And if you can get him better down the field catching the ball, then that's all I need from Wingo. I don't need a win in 5 red zone dice you up guy.
Yep.
That's where I'm at with it. All right, before we keep going, though, guys, let's hear a word from David McClellan.
Big financial decisions don't have to feel overwhelming. There's someone who can guide you every step of the way. David McClellan is a fiduciary financial advisor with Forum Financial, and he's working closely with his clients as a true financial life coach, guiding every aspect of your financial journey with expertise and care. If his name sounds familiar, that's because David was a swimmer at Texas and a member of several national championship teams. Today, he channels that same championship mindset into helping people win with their finances. David specializes in financial planning, and he's contributed numerous articles to Kiplinger on the topic of retirement tax bombs. And right now, David is offering viewers a free intro consultation to assess your financial situation. Do not miss this chance to get personalized guidance from a trusted expert. To schedule your free consult, email David at dmcclellan@forumfinancial.com, or you can call him directly at 312-933-8823. The contact info is in the description.
So Skittles and Red Bull is not what athletes hydrate and fuel the body. I don't know if that's what he did, but just as a conversation, first off, half the athletes do drink Red Bull and Skittles. The athletes are like, whenever they feature them on those shows, the ones with the healthy diets get featured. A lot of them are high candy because they need simple sugars and carbs because they burn a lot in the workout. But if he did learn, if it was Skittles and Red Bull, right, and then he's dehydrated, that's great. That's a lesson learned. Now, he needs to learn the lesson. But I think all young athletes, I think human beings have to learn this. I think everyone's learned it. Like, I can't just eat Skittles. I need to eat healthier, right? So I think that's just part of the maturation as well. And getting more serious with more money on the line. He's trying to go out this next year. So I think in the thing with Wingo is like everything I've heard about him is that he's an awesome kid and that he's a huge team guy. He was big in the Cam Coleman recruitment, all of that stuff. So I don't want it to look like Wingo's lazy or doesn't try or is disengaged because that's never what I've heard about Wingo. I've only heard positives. Now, some things like that.
Dude, you can find him on film making key blocks all the time.
Correct. So it's never been that. I never want to give that interpretation of Wingo. My only argument is that he lacks skill right now, but it's not that he's a disengaged player or he's coasting on his traits or anything like that. I think he's just in the learning process right now. That's all I think about Wingo.
I think it's possible he could explode developmentally this offseason.
It is possible.
But I have all the same hesitations as you.
Yeah, it is possible. And also, too, just say he remains constant, improves the drops a little bit. With Cam Coleman, too, it opens up that ability for him to just have a way bigger season, too.
Yep.
I think. So it's just It's not even that crazy. All right. This feels like an indictment on Chris Jackson.
No.
No, it's not really.
There's a reason that one of the big everybody's like puffing up Kurt Signetti now and what he does, and that's what's so great about it. And there's a reason that one of the big emphases on his genius has been scouting and player evaluation. Because knowing what to look for and what things you can teach and what things you can't and all that, it matters, because you get some guys, there's nothing you can do. And there's a lot of guys that'll get you into trouble in coaching where it's like, but they're so fast, or they're so this, or they're so that. But then they are missing key ingredients that will get you fired. Like Lamar Jackson.
Or what ingredients are we selecting for? Are we selecting, do we think we're NFL light and our job is to just get the athlete that we know is going to go to the NFL regardless of scheme and then try to shoehorn him into scheme? Are we trying to get the guy that's going to fit our lead to college wins, not graphics in 10 years of how many players Texas has in the NFL? But when you're swimming in the BPA world, the best player available, high star world, I mean, all these guys are really flashy. And then you tend to think my coaching is so effective, no matter what, I will mold this player. But when you're not swimming in those waters, like Signetti wasn't, he's going to start swimming in those waters. And that's why I'm interested to watch him. Then you can solve more for that style because you're forced to. But Texas can look at all the Lambos and buy any of them. And so you can run into trouble there as well as great things happening.
Yep. Especially if you're losing the race with your fleet of Lambos.
Right.
It's like, how are you losing?
Exactly. Yeah, you should have a higher top. There should not just step on the gas harder, but that's what he's trying to do. So, yeah, I wouldn't say it's Chris Jackson, but there's clearly something to Mosley coming in as the most skilled runner, but also there's something to them, our skilled route runner, but also there's something to them identifying Mosley as the most skilled route runner and bringing him in too.
Can you do that Bobby Petronic one? This is a fun question.
Honestly, how many Sark QBs have done anything in the league? They get there and then ...
So here's the question. Is Sark a bad quarterbacks coach because his quarterbacks regularly underachieve relative to expectations in the NFL? Or is he a great offensive coach?
Right. You can go both ways.
Guys that end up doing nothing in the NFL and he's putting up huge numbers and winning in college.
Right. Is Sark awful because Quinn Ewers went from number 1 to 7th round, or is Sark awesome for getting a lot out of a 7th round quarterback? And so it's like, that's kind of the argument. And you would think there would be more NFL success just because the whole selling point is we're putting you in an NFL style offense. We are preparing you for the NFL.
I'm not sure that's really true.
I know, but that's in the pitch, right? So there's that, but also the NFL is so high variable because Sark will get quarterbacks that look better and then they do go early, and by definition, going early means you're going into a bad situation.
Yeah.
So it's like, dude, if I'm a quarterback, like I want to be late first round, even if I'm early first round talent, I want to be late first round. I want to get picked up by a good team, and I want to sit there for 2 or 3 years as their aging starter declines, learn the system, and then pop in. I do not want to show up at a team that doesn't have any pieces. I'm the savior when it's impossible to be the savior at that point. But this argument is interesting because you can take both angles here. Do you have an angle you lean towards, Ian? Because I really don't. I see both sides of it. Now I can get mad more at Sark. I'm more critical of Sark than you are. I
think both are true. I think the Ewers deal, watching that, there's an argument with the fact that it felt like Ewers didn't get better at some key stuff over his time at Texas. And like you were watching him in his like second NFL start, and you're like, his footwork is improved. He's gotten better in his footwork than he did in like 4 years at Texas.
Yeah.
Although we'll see how that holds up, because sometimes he would come back in the fall in a given year and his footwork would be way better and we'd be like, okay. And then he'd get dinged up and it would all go to hell.
Well, and
So-
also I'm always wary of any NFL success of a quarterback ever, not in their first season, but their first season playing, because we do this every year. There's some new quarterback that is the hot thing. Wait till next year. Well, the defenses haven't game plan for them. Once they start game planning for them, it changes drastically. So even any success in your first time playing, whether it's year 7 or year 1, I don't believe you because they haven't keyed in on you.
Yeah.
So it's that aspect too.
I have some CJ Stroud short positions.
I was gonna CJ Stroud, right? Is this
Those-
going to be the next great one? And then they start game planning for him, and so it
Yeah.
changes things like that.
I'm getting rich on those. We'll see if his defense can bail him out next round again.
Yeah. Text Jap, Ewers was hurt a lot. Correct, but Ewers' body is why Ewers is hurt a lot. So you have to calculate that in. He's just a smaller quarterback. He's going to get hurt more. So it's still
Pocket presence is not great either.
pocket presence is not great. Evasion is not great. So therefore, he's going to get hurt more. That's part of evaluating Quinn Ewers. It's not an excuse for why he didn't develop. It's a reason of the player for why the development stalls. That's the thing. Any final thoughts, Ian?
One last one. Mr. Freshwater says QB is so mental, it's hard to put NFL success on a college coach. I will say this. This is another reason why I prefer the sort of simple offense and the tempo offense approach of like Herman or Signetti, is that you can teach your quarterback how to have more command on the field. And so it's like here they're going to do one of 3 things. And for each of those 3 things, we're going to have 3 answers, just hypothetically, right? And I'm going to empower you to produce the right answer on the field based on what you're seeing. So you can end up teaching guys how to be a true field general through a simpler process with just little tweaks on simple themes. And then that is going to scale you up to the NFL much better. The other one is I am going to perfectly scheme so that you have very simple choices, and I'm going to make sure your choice is right by my scheme.
Right.
And I'm going to turn you into a robot in a high volume of play calls. So it's going to look like we're super complex, but really all the complexity is designed
To end up in one decision.
to end up in simpler decisions for you on the field. So Sark does that way, and that works pretty good in the college level. But then it doesn't scale up to the NFL where you need. So that's where I stand on that. And I'm often question myself and flag with which one of these I'm trying to do. Because it's so tempting to just like try to scheme it to where your 10-year-old quarterback doesn't have to make decisions. And
Yeah.
I'm sure it's no different when they're 18 or 19 or 20 either.
Yeah.
But the other way is actually, in my opinion, better if you can get there.
Teach a man to fish.
Teach a man to fish. Yes.
All right, everyone, head over to Inside Texas, 50% off the ultimate fan bundle. Inside Texas, that's our website. Paired with On3 for national news for football, and then national recruiting news over at Rivals. Everyone, thank you guys for hanging out with us. And this was brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Later.